Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time today to join this Dynamics 365 and Power Platform Special Interest Group. Appreciate it. It's Friday afternoon. We hope we've got some interesting content for you, and we'll give you a quick rundown of the agenda and what we're going to cover today. I'm just going to do a little overview as to what the purpose of these webcasts is. We have some new attendees on today, which is fantastic to see. We are going to talk today about getting started with a Power Platform practice or a Power Apps practice where Microsoft provide lots of things. Some of them are not so well known about. And we're going to talk about the common conversations that I've been having with certain partners around how to get started. We are going to do a partner showcase. I'm really pleased we've got Jason Bettridge on from Circle in the UK today to talk about Power BI for professional services and how they use Power BI internally to run their own business. We're then going to do a more in-depth technology update. So later on in the call, we have our CTO, Michelle van den Brink. He's going to talk all about Power Automate and AI Builder with you. We leave that kind of towards the end of the session, probably about 30 minutes in, maybe 20 minutes in, we shall see. And Michelle will take you through not only kind of the concepts, but it will also demonstrate the technology. So you get to see it in action, you get to see how it's working, you get to see all of the things that hopefully will start to give you a better understanding of what's going on in that world. So the just to say the purpose of these webcasts, we started them way back at the start of 2020, so 18 months ago now in the UK. And we used to get kind of 12 partners, and there was probably around 25 attendees per week that were joining just from the UK. We've had QB Share UK this week, so I don't expect a lot of them to attend today. We've had them in 2 days of sessions. But what we thought we'd do is we should actually run this more formally from a QBS perspective. We wanted to include all of our partners across Europe. And I think it's fair to say that the audience today on this call is going to be mixed. There's going to be kind of executive management, there's going to be consultants, there's going to be people from sales, marketing, pre-sales, consulting. And what we will try and do is kind of find a balance for the messaging in there, so that we at least provide some level for each and every one of you as part of this. It was just a CRM community. Obviously, Microsoft now with Power Platform, they kind of lead with that from the old Dynamics 365 CRM or sales, marketing, service, field service perspective. So we called it the Power Platform Special Interest Group. And we try to keep the agenda pretty much fixed each and every month. So we do the kind of an executive update or a Microsoft update. We will then do a partner showcase, and then we will do the technology update later in the session. So the first thing that I want to cover today with you all is it's a piece on Microsoft resources, or how to get started if you are a Power Platform partner. And the first thing I would like you to understand is why we are doing this part of the session today. Now, based on feedback from previous sessions, some of the feedback has been around you'd like to know more about what's available to help you get started with Power Platform. I've had lots of follow-up queries around how do I go to market with Power Platform. Well, the answer to that is it's quite difficult because it's a platform, not a product. You can't just sell it like you can an application. Or where can I get hands-on experience? And things like my trial account keeps expiring, so I can't test this out. I can't do anything effectively. I have to recreate from scratch every 30 days because of the Microsoft restrictions. And then lots of partners also have kind of been asking me, what would be a good Power App, or where can you start even thinking to begin with all of these Power Apps? So I went off and I did some research as to what was out there, and I tried to think of it from a partner's perspective. Whereas if I'm going to go to market, then I probably need help with collateral, and I'm also going to need to think about getting my people ready and the things that I need there. And if I'm really going to go down the route of building a practice around Power Platform, what is there out there that's available, that's free of charge, that can help? So the best resource that I could find for this was the Power Platform for Partners site on the vast site that is the Microsoft kind of public-facing website. I've put the URL in here for you today, and I'm not. This is not just to point into that and say go and have a look. I've taken a look at a lot of the resources in here. I think there's some fantastic collateral, particularly around the go-to-market piece and the Power Apps resources or the presentation assets. The bit that and that's all for collateral and copy for your website. The bit that I find here that is very valuable and very useful based on the conversations that I've had with partners. There is a section called Build a Practice, and there is one very specific deck in there. It's called Build and Grow Your Microsoft Low-Code Application Development Practice. So quite a mouthful, but it's the top resource under Build a Practice. And I absolutely love that as a starting point, because as well as defining the market opportunity, it has this slide in there. It might look very bland, it might look very plain, but one of the most common conversations I have with partners is, where do I start? What can I use Power Platform for? Now, not only does this slide give you many examples to help you start thinking, it also drills into what those examples are in the context of the customers. So, on the slide there, you can see there is something, it mentions CRM Lite. And that's in the context of something similar to the Jumpstart 365 solutions that you all have access to through your cloud, through your QBS Cloud, QBS Partner Cloud Toolbox. It talks about other things. It talks about invoice reporting in the context of automation. So from emails coming in through to data, and that's using AI Builder and Power Automate. And that's something that I know Michelle is excited to show you later in this session today. Just how you can set up that kind of technical capability and how it works. And it talks about many other business scenarios that are already in use within customers today. So if you're looking for inspiration around where to get started with your Power Platform proposition, that really is the place to begin. So whether it's invoice processing, whether it's consolidating financial management and information, whether it's CRM Lite, there's an example there to help you get your mind thinking about how to get started with Power Platform and what that means to you and your business and the types of solutions that you can create. Of course, there is the go-to-market resources there as well that have copy and collateral for you to use. The second resource that I found was a specific part of the Microsoft Partner Portal. So you need kind of sign-in credentials to get to this for Power Apps for SMB. So if you're not just selling to corporate enterprise, I found that the collateral here, although it's somewhat older, it has a really useful collection of infographics, presentations and messaging that are more suited to SMB organizations, which you can use in your marketing. It is, however, very generic. So I think one of the things that I'll kind of say is that you can't go to market with Power Platform as a whole, but this will give you some of the things that you can use to help explain what the concepts are to your customers and what you potentially base your solutions on. So with those resources at your disposal, hopefully your marketing teams will be in a great place to begin to create and define the value proposition. And don't forget what I said there, it's not easy just to go to market with Power Platform. You've got to think a little bit more horizontally or a little bit more vertically about what the opportunity is. So finally, on the resources section, for those in the audience who are more technical, pre-sales or consulting, one of the great things that's available to you is the Power Apps Developer Plan. This is an evolution of the old Communities Plan, but it's been rebranded and it's been updated with some expanded features. Originally, there was a lot of restrictions around the use and whether or not you could export the solutions that you created. It's been much enhanced, and this is designed to help you develop and test apps. It's got the premium and the custom connectors in there, which again, you'll see Michelle using later on through the Power Automate demonstration. So you also get access to Power Automate for non-production building and testing of apps. So you could use your internal use rights or the things that come with your Microsoft partner network benefits. But this is one thing that I really found, even working inside of QBS. Those internal use rights are taken up by the business as part of their internal deployment, production, sandbox, and everything that goes with that. So the reason why I really like this Power Apps developer plan is I no longer have to set up a 30-day trial, which continually expires, and then I have to reset it up every 30 days in order to be able to do kind of Power Apps demonstrations or show off our Jumpstart 365 solutions. This is designed at individuals within an organization, so it's free of charge. So not only are you going to save on your internal use rights and your costs, multiple people within the same organization can sign up and get access to their own environment. It comes with, there's a huge FAQ on there. It comes with a certain amount of storage capacity, 2 gig, I think might be 3. But it can really help with that, where you've got multiple people within an organization and you don't want to use your internal use rights, you can create those individually. And it's a fantastic place to, if you wanted to evaluate our QBS Jumpstart 365 for Sales app, for example, you could deploy it in there. It would never expire, so you'd be able to build on top of it. You could even start creating your own apps from scratch. I think this is a really great place for you all to start. So in summary, on these Microsoft resources and about getting started with Power Platform, I want to kind of recap and just help you understand 3 things. When it comes to identifying solutions and when it comes to identifying how to go to market, it's going to be very difficult to go to market with a Power Platform message. So think about what you have in your existing customer base that you can leverage to try and identify quick wins and key messaging. Let's say be that kind of in relation to your industry vertical or in relation to something generic like invoice processing or similar. Then think about how you're going to approach your customers with that messaging. It can't be buy Power Platform or buy Power Apps because you can't sell everything to everybody or anything to anybody. That's really not going to work. Put it in the vertical market or the horizontal context of value-added intellectual property that you can position to your customers. And if you can do that, I think you'll be in a really great place to kind of get started. Just be sure to ensure that you align and allocate the right resources within your organization to enable you to achieve those goals. It's okay saying, well, we think we should go to market with that and we'd like to create this app. You've then got to align the resources in order to kind of progress that moving forwards. So that was the first thing that I wanted to say today. And it was the first thing that I wanted to talk about just in relation to Power Apps, Power Automate and kind of going to market. The next thing we would like to cover, and I'm going to be really delighted to show you something in action in a minute. We have hopefully Jason Betridge. Jason, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chris.
Excellent. So Jason's joining us today. One of the component parts of Power Platform is something called Power BI. And so I'm really excited about Power BI, and it comes from spending 5 years as a data or BI specialist at Microsoft. It's going back quite a while now, but it was always used, BI, business intelligence, was always used as a hook to sell business applications. So the number of times I was brought in by partners to deliver a business intelligence session so they could sell the business application was astounding. Probably I was at Microsoft for 17 years, and in this role, I think that was my most requested gig ever. People say, can you come in and tell the business intelligence story? Can you deliver the vision? Can you help the business that we are positioning this to understand what they will be able to get out of the system once it's in place? So it's a fantastic hook to kind of position sales. And that's going back now probably over a decade. And the products and the solution stack has gone from strength to strength. Of course, it's not just about Power BI, it's about all of the underlying data platforms and the business applications, connectors that Microsoft have and can provide. Power BI is just the icing on the cake. And if you think about the Gartner Magic Quadrant there, Microsoft are so far out as leaders when it comes to completeness of vision to the right and ability to execute, heading upwards. I think this is something that you really should evaluate, investigate, and work out what you can do with your current business in order to position this out to kind of your end customers, to really show what you can, what value you can bring to the business just beyond business applications. If I look at the audience today, I think some of you are, not all of you, but some of you are primarily focused on ERP, Business Central, Nav, and I think if there's one thing that I wanted to take away from this, it's that the Power BI capabilities within Business Central, it's not highlighted as a weakness by this Gartner report, but I think they should be. It's really not in the place it needs to be for me. And if you look at any of the Microsoft How to Do Power BI with Business Central sessions, any event, whether they're community events, Microsoft events, I think you're probably going to be underwhelmed. And if you're technical, you're probably going to be frustrated at the limitations placed on you, the hoops you need to jump through to get it working inside of the product. So in that, guys, you really need to think outside of the Business Central box and outside sometimes the CRM box. I know that CRM is based squarely on Dataverse, so it makes it much easier. But to be able to have a dedicated data analytics and a BI team, it takes some doing. There's probably specialist partners in each and every one of your markets that could help. There are definitely specialist partners in the UK who we know, and you could consider a partnership just for the data analytics. I think there's a phrase now where people say data is the new oil. And for me, this helps explain how the sum of the data parts within an organization is always going to be greater than in any individual application. So as partners, we should be thinking, how can we help get the oil out of the ground or the data out of the usual repository where it's pretty worthless, and get it flowing through to the right people within your customers. Now, Circle today, who are going to do this partner showcase for us, I'm delighted that Jason is with us. Jason, could you, so Circle are information management experts in the UK. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about Circle, kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm the managing director of Circle, and what we do is Dynamics, Office 365 from a productivity perspective. So SharePoint, Teams, Power Platform, all that good stuff, and then Power BI. Our kind of specialism really is working across the stack and trying to make it as integrated as possible. Really, we work in no particular sector across all verticals, and we've been in business for, this is our 4th year now.
Thanks for that, Jason. That's great. The reason why I wanted Jason on the call today, I wanted to showcase this because almost everyone on the call will understand what is needed to run a sales process with sales teams. And then once it's closed, to deliver projects within agreed timeframes. Now, Circle have created a business dashboard that they use internally with kind of like a heads-up display. So just like a flight deck on a plane, they use this to run the business whilst it's in flight. They use it day to day for sales projects. They've integrated their finance data to pull through additional pieces on invoicing. They can get down to many individual details at project level. This isn't built within Business Central, and this isn't built within any of the Dynamics 365 apps. This is built obviously outside, and there's some specifics in here around projects and resource reporting. Everybody knows one of the major risks when you're running a project is overrun, or the risk of burn, as it can also be known. If you've committed to deliver in 12 days for a customer and it takes you 16, you've been burnt on 4 days. So how can you monitor what's going on in time to help salespeople have another conversation with the customer if there's been scope creep or similar things like that? And the dashboard that Circle have designed to run their business, it takes this into account as a major consideration. And they can use these to manage and monitor this overall by individual employee. Now, instead of me just positioning this to you, Jason has very kindly offered to basically do a demonstration for us today live on, is it your live business data, Jason?
No, it's some of it's live, but some of it's got demo accounts and stuff like in it. So it basically to obfuscate the project details and the customer details. So it's actually their version of our live dashboard, but just with demo data.
So you're not giving away any trade secrets. There's
not really, no.
Confidential.
Not really.
But what you are going to do is show us the kind of the thing that you look at for your. Can you share your screen so we can take a look?
Yeah.
It's great. So I mean, is that the heads up the display? Is that the dashboard that you use to run?
Yeah. So I mean, I use this on a day-by-day basis really to give me, a headline view of what's going on. So what we can see on this particular dashboard is what's our sales revenue target look like, how far are we away from achieving that, what does our sales margin targets look like, and again, how far are we away from achieving that, and then what's the sales type of information. So what one business have we got, what have we got in the pipeline, if we win all of that business in the pipeline, what's the sales forecast looking like, what have we turned over so far this year, what does this year's one business look like in comparison to the previous sales year.
And Jason, just to interrupt, there's a couple of people saying they can't see the screen, so can we drop out the sharing and just try again? I'm gonna.
Can you see it, Chris?
I can see it, strangely enough, yes, but nobody else can. So yeah, it's definitely dropped out now.
Okay.
So everybody was saying black screen so far. Really appreciate the feedback from the audience there. Somebody was saying they could see it, some can't. So let's try one more time. I can see it again now. Okay. Success. Okay. Yep. Okay. Lots of messages.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. We're good to go. There's the heads up display. And the one business across the top, the pipeline, the turnover, all there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so we've got all targets. We've got one business pipeline, all that sort of thing, variance on previous year, and then we've got some financial information. So how much are we forecasting to invoice this month? What did we invoice last month? What invoices have been paid, unpaid? Then we've got some project information. So what percentage billable is the team overall? How many active projects have we got on the go at any one time, and any overrunning projects. We can then see a bit of detail, and then the sales numbers and the deal status across the month. Equally, we can filter on a particular product type within our organisation and get the same numbers again, but just filtered down by a particular discipline. So we can see we've won £322,000 worth of Dynamics work. Okay,
so what happens next? Obviously, you've got the heads-up display. That's a cracking view. How do you monitor what your salespeople are up to?
Okay, so
that's generally the first question that sales managers will ask.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So from this dashboard, we can just filter on Andy and get the same numbers again, but just filtered down by Andy. So this is giving you Andy's target, what he's won, how far off he is from target, what he did the previous year. So the same metrics again, because we have core metrics that we monitor, and then we can see his deals across the months. We could drill into a particular month if we wanted to see exactly what deals and what work were won in that particular month, and we can see what his target looks like, and what previous year numbers look like as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate you rolled this data back into your last financial year, just so as you could show us the kind of demo in full.
Yeah, and we can go back. So we can go back a year and click on one button just to see how that compares to previous years. We've also got the ability to do some sales analysis. So for sake of argument, if I was looking at Andrew again, I can say, okay, what his overall order value looked like. What was professional services. Let's have a quick look at what he's won. Let's have a look at the Dynamics deals, and that gives me a breakdown of every single project that we've got that fulfills that criteria.
And that looks good. I'm glad you showed us Andy's details and not yours, then, Jason.
No chance. No chance.
So, this is great. I mean, if there's a little bit more you want to show there, fantastic. But also, can you've drilled into a specific one opportunity there, or a combination of opportunities. Once you've got that, you get into kind of post sales, right, and tracking what's going on with delivery.
Yeah. So, you know, it's hard work, as we all know, winning business, but it's even harder actually delivering, you know, a successful project that's on time and on budget. So, if I go into our project performance dashboard, what I've done, I've filtered down on a particular customer of Andy's, installation specialists, and what we can see there is, you know, is the value of the particular project, how many days we've sold. Then we can see how many days we've got that we've actually remaining on that particular project. We can see how many days have worked, and then we can see what the percentage complete is. So percentage complete for us is a project manager asking the team, how far through do we think we are in this particular project? Yeah, and then what we've got that we can compare that to then is, okay, so we're 40% through on that particular project, but we've actually only burned 21% of the time. So that looks like we're doing pretty well on that particular project. If we carry on at the same trajectory, we're going to come in at 54% of budget, which would be great. You know, the project below that, you can see that there was a slight overrun on that particular project. The one at the top, yeah, hopefully that just means the project manager's not updated the system yet, because hopefully we're in real trouble if that's the case. But we can also see then a breakdown of timesheet data. So these are the individuals that have been contributing to that particular project. Yeah,
so that there shows basically a summary of what your consultants are up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's been billed, what's planned. Has it got what's planned to be worked on there?
The better view for that, actually, if I actually go to the resource planning side of our dashboards, if I go to plan versus actual, so this shows me an individual consultant, and it shows me what projects are currently on the radar for this particular individual for this time frame, and the green squares are showing me what they're booked in to work on, for that particular week, and the number inside the square is actually how much time did they spend on that particular project. So for that week there, week commencing the 10th of May, Andy worked on that project pretty much as planned. He did a little bit on support there and did a little bit of internal time. So that's not too bad. That's a pretty decent plan. If I went to somebody that's a bit more, say, sporadic than that, you can then see that Andrew was due to work on these projects, but you can see he's actually he's been pulled onto other projects. So for the project managers now, there's a concern about the fact that there was 4 days planned to work there and not a lot of time spent on it. So that will get fed back into the project management process to make sure that we don't need future time planned on it, to make sure we catch up. So that gives us a good view of where the time is going. If I go back to Andrew again on here, we can, if we wanted to look at a more wider view, we can bring in Brad as well. So Brad's working on the same project. He's working on the Teacher A project at the bottom. And again, you can see that he was provisionally planned to work on some of this in this particular week and didn't actually work on it at all. So again, that gets fed back into the project management process so that we make sure that we've got enough resource on it in the future.
And is that how you basically see project summary information? How do you sort of identify and highlight risk? Was that all on the one before?
Yeah, so what you can do from here is you can actually drill down now from the project and get more detail in a project summary. And this now gives us that project and gives us most information we need to know about that particular project. So it's given us the budget. So what did we estimate it was going to take? This is how much time we spent on it so far. With the future time that's planned on it. That's what we're now predicting we're going to need for this particular project. So if the project goes to plan, we're going to need 21.77 days, and we're forecasting that we'll come in under on this particular project. clearly, there's times when things don't always go to plan, and we understand that, and that is tracked in this as well. But it does give us a decent breakdown of who's working on the project. So for somebody that's not totally aware of this particular project, they can see straight away that Andy is the main contributor to this project, so they can go and speak to him if they want to know something about it. We can see when it started, we can see where the time's been broken down. And again, we can also see the project plan or the resource plan for this particular project and all the team members that are actually working on it.
Everything in one place there, Jason.
Everything in one place, yeah.
Pretty awesome. So one final thing: how many back-end data sources are you integrating there? You don't have to name them. I'm just wondering how many data sources go into this.
Yeah, there's four separate data sources that have been pulled into this particular set of dashboards.
Thanks. And that's one of the things that, at the start I said, if you think within the Business Central box or you think within the Dynamics 365 application box and you keep everything in one place, you're only really going to be looking at data silos, as huge as some of those applications are. So seeing everything from multiple data sources combined in Power BI is obviously a much better way to go.
Absolutely.
And what I will say then, Jason, thank you very much for showing that off. I know it's kind of your own business IP. I know you do provide those services out through partners as well and to customers, but that's your own business IP. I really appreciate you showing us that today.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. So moving on now, and we always leave the best to last. So here is hopefully also now, and I talked earlier about AI Builder, I talked about Power Automate and how you could think about invoice processing, all those pieces. Michelle, are you around to take us through the next kind of 20 to 30 minutes?
Surely, I am.
Fantastic.
All right, let's take a quick look at Power Automate, Microsoft's product to do pretty much any kind of automation you would like to do inside of the Power Platform, really, where we can do any kind of automation on any kind of system, really, as long as it's somehow connected to the Power Platform. We have a few flavors of things that we could potentially automate inside of Power Automate. We have so-called scheduled flows, which are things like scheduled tasks that you may have running every day or every week or every once in a while. We have automated flows that you can trigger on something that happens somewhere in your business, be it inside of Dynamics 365, maybe an order gets closed or something similar to that, or maybe an email comes in that is a queue or rather a trigger for Power Automate to automatically start a process in the background. We have instant flows, which is just a big button that lives somewhere and you can press that button or click that button whenever you like and it will trigger automatically. We also have business process flows, although that's slightly more manual. That's actually a human process where a human goes through several stages and follows several steps. So we won't really be focusing on that too much. And then lastly, there's also desktop flows, which is a mechanism that we can use to automate things that are not online yet. So if you still have an old Win32 application living somewhere that you also want to automate it, but it doesn't have an API, it doesn't have any kind of online connection, you can use RPA, robotic processing automation, to also automate a part of that. After you have connected your trigger, you can connect any kind of action inside of Power Automate, and that can be any action of any system that is supported by the platform, or maybe just an HTTP call to an API that you may be familiar with, or if you really want to go out of the comfort of the platform itself, you can create your own connectors for those systems that may not already have connectors. There's a lot of connectors already out there, but chances are that you might have some requirement that doesn't exist yet, so you can always fall back to creating your own connector. Now, let's take a look at that in real life, because that's so much more exciting than looking at a bunch of slides about it. So we are here in the Power Apps portal, in the Maker, so-called Maker portal. We already have access to Power Automate using any Power App subscription. That can be a standard Power App subscription. That can be the developer plan that Chris was talking about. This could also be an existing Dynamics 365 subscription, because all Dynamics 365 subscriptions come with Power Apps and Power Automate. So straight from here, we can already go to our flows via flows here on the side, or you can go to the dedicated Power Automate panel as well. And then you'll have a very similar experience, but things are slightly more blue than purple. And the menu on the side is a little bit more optimized for looking at your flows. On the side here, we can see my current flows, and I can see access to some great templates that help me get started a little bit faster. I can search for what I want and what I want to do. There's many great templates available already, but we can always just start creating our own flows from scratch. When we do that, we have that choice of those various triggers that I mentioned. So an automated flow, an instant flow, a scheduled flow, etc. And when we do that, we get to pick what that exact trigger moment is. So for an automated flow, we could go ahead and start there. We are welcomed by a little bit of a guided process to walk us through the steps that we need to get this set up. And we could start by selecting what is the trigger that we would want. So we could select any of these triggers, or we could search for a specific trigger. So for example, when an email arrives, which is an Outlook trigger, which we can use. So I'll select this one, Outlook 365, or well, Office 365 Outlook, when a new email arrives. So I want to start an automated process when a new email arrives, for example. And I can do something with that email a little bit later. So when an email arrives, I can select my inbox, and I can select what's happening to that email when it actually arrives, plus a little bit of advanced options like filtering on only trigger for specific people, or only trigger for things with attachments or for specific subject lines. So let's say if the importance is high, so we'll just trigger on all emails that come in with the importance is high, then I might want to connect an action. And then I could, for example, send a message to Teams. So I'll grab the Teams connector. And over on action, we can see all of the actions that Teams supports. So I want to do a message. I'll just type that. So say post a message in a chat or a channel. It'll connect to Microsoft Teams for a moment. First time you use a connector, it always has to think about that for a moment. So I'll post as, in this case, I have this option to post as a Flowbot, which is the central user that you can use to post on behalf of things. I'll post that to a specific channel, and then I get to choose the team and the channel and all of the other things that I want to post to. So I'll just post to the general channel here. I can also send this as a group chat or to a specific user. And then I'll type, hey, look at this email. At this very important email. And that way we can automate a part of this process. And of course, it would be nice if we could also bring a little bit of information from that email into the actual message. And we can do that as well by flowing data from our action into our next action. We can flow data by using the Add Dynamic Content option, and that allows us to grab any data that occurred previously inside of our flow and take it with us to the next action. So for example, in our trigger, let's say we have a trigger that started when a particular file was uploaded or when we receive an email with an attachment, that would have as its output a file name, a file size, some contents. The next action would see those fields, and we could take those as input. The next action will also have some kind of output, and the action after that can also see that as its input. To use any of that, we can use that dynamic fields here. It's hiding a little bit because I'm zoomed in quite a lot, but here it is. On any of these fields, we can say add dynamic content, and we can dive into all of the dynamic content that we have seen earlier. So for example, hey, look at this important email from, and then I'll just use the from field from the email. And just like that, we've made this slightly more dynamic. all we need to do is give this a name. So let's say important email notifier. And just like that, we have this sorted. We can then test this. We can click on test. I can test this manually. That's the first time we see that we'll have to cause the trigger to actually occur. So I'll just go ahead and give that a quick test, and I'll send this particular user an email. So I'll just use my own email for that to send them an email. And of course, I'll have to make sure that that is an important email. So I'll open up my Outlook and say, hi, importance. This was very important. We'll go ahead and send that email, and then we'll wait in the background for that to occur. This email has arrived. Over in Power Automate, it might take a few extra seconds for it to actually pick up, especially when it's relatively new flow. It takes a little bit of time to warm that process up, but in a few moments, it should automatically trigger as well. We can come back to that in a second. Oh, it had actually already finished. We can also do anything else. For example, that scheduled flow I mentioned, you can just enter a kind of schedule here, or if you wanted to trigger on anything inside of Dynamics 365 or Business Central, for example, there is a dedicated set of actions for Business Central. So if I look on that, we have a whole bunch of dedicated Business Central things that we can do when records are created in Business Central or updated or anything like that. For the rest of Dynamics 365 and Power Apps, that all runs on the Dataverse, which used to be called the Common Data Service. There's one central connector for that, which is the Dataverse connector. So I can use that, the Dataverse connector, to connect to any other Dynamics 365 application. So that's the CRM applications and also the finance and operations parts, where they're already moved over to the Dataverse. So we have one dedicated connector for that. When a row is added, modified, or deleted, we can specify a specific action here. So maybe when something is created or when something is updated, and we can select a table, and we can select any table from the Dataverse. So let's say when a order is being closed as a particular status. So we'll set that to a particular scope. I can filter this onto a specific business unit if I want. And then I can even filter down to a specific status, for example. I don't want to have this occur when all the orders get updated. I want to filter on a specific thing. So I can say, well, when the status is equal to, and I hope I remember this correctly, this number, this is the fulfilled or closed status for orders. That number is something you can look up fairly easily in the documentation for Dataverse. And of course, you could use this as anything. So here we have a trigger when order gets closed as complete. And then we can do something along the lines of sending an email or creating an event or anything to follow this up. So we'll need to schedule something for delivery. We'll create an event for that inside of our Outlook, for example. So we'll say create event, and we can create that in my own calendar, and we'll say arrange delivery. We'll use that dynamic content here again for the order ID, for example. And then at start time, we might want to make that slightly more dynamic rather than just flowing in a particular thing here. We do have a requested delivery date that we could potentially use, but we might want to not do that on the delivery date itself. Of course, we might want to schedule that a little bit ahead of time. So what we could do is use an expression. And that's something you can essentially use to make your flows a little bit more dynamic. You can use expressions for a lot of different things, like converting types, but also for performing simple manipulations like moving a date up or down a little bit, or simple arithmetic by summing a whole bunch of numbers together for a total invoice amount or something like that. The expression is available in that same window on a different tab though, and we can just start typing that here. So for example, I would want to type add days, and then I'll want to add a particular day, so we can dive back for that requested delivery date. So if I'll have to find that again over on, oh, it's not in here anymore. Well, let's just use the current date then, which is just fine. Which is there's a function for that, UTC now, and then I'll say, well, from now I want to make sure that within the next 5 days we schedule that. So I'll use this as a expression, and then for the end date I'll do the same thing, but I'll also tack on another hour, add hours, and then I'll use 1 here. So this is 5 days plus 1 hour. Make sure to set the correct time zone as well. And let's see, where are we? Here we are. And just like that, we've created a flow that automatically will create an event, an appointment for us inside of Outlook on that particular date in the future. Checking back on our important email notifier, let's see what happened there. Let's see if it triggered. It did. We can always see if something triggered. So we can see what happened when it was triggered. So we can see that there's a green check mark here and a green check mark there. And we can also see the input and the output. What happened, what was triggered, why it was triggered, and also what information was passed. So we can see this, hey, look at this very important email from, and then, hey, there's my email address. That's a little bit of dynamic data that we pulled in from the other side. Well, just my email address is perhaps not enough information, so we can always edit this and we can make changes. Then maybe we want to include also the subject in here. The body is perhaps a little bit too much, but I do think that we also have a, no, do we not? We have the message ID or a URL or something that we could point someone in the right direction, or we could say the body preview, which should be fine, which is a short snippet of the actual body. We'll save that. And this time, when we click on test, we can actually rerun the last. So this time I'll choose automatically with a recent trigger, that one from 6 minutes ago, and we'll just rerun that with our changes. So now the trigger doesn't have to happen again. It just reuses whatever happened previously. And there we go. Now it has re-triggered this, and now there's a little bit of extra information in here. Let's take a quick look over in Teams if that actually happened. Not that you don't believe it, but I like to show you that it actually happened. That'll take way too long to load, apparently. Way too long. All right, we'll let that load in the background, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. Now we can use the power of Power Automate with a variety of different connectors. There's a lot of different connectors available. There's over 350 different connectors available today, and Microsoft is continuously adding more and more connectors. If there's any connector that might not be available today, you can also create your own connectors with fairly little effort. There's no development required on your part. You can do that with a simple click and drag interface, as long as that external system that's not connected yet has some kind of standardized API. You can click and drag a custom connector together. Some of the connectors can also be local. It doesn't all have to be in the cloud, and some connectors even support some kind of function call where it's not necessarily moving data around, reading or writing data, but it might be something like a function, like an object character recognition, an OCR function where you send an image and it comes back with some kind of response of what the text is in that image. Which brings me to AI Builder, which is something that we can also use together with Power Automate, a service in the Power Platform that you can add to any process in Power Automate or to any app in Power Apps to further enrich your AI capabilities, or to make your processes smarter in a sense. There are a few pre-trained models that you can leverage, which are pretty great to get started with. You don't have to do anything to set these up. They're all already there, and they're being trained and maintained by Microsoft. Not all of them are equally well equipped. Some of them will misdetect things occasionally, but that's all part of AI. It learns as it's going. So this is a service that will get better and better over time. The business card reader is one that you will have out of the box already if you have Dynamics 365 for Sales Enterprise, because it comes with the business card reader. You can find that on the contact experience. If you create a new contact, there's an option for you to scan a business card, also through Outlook, so you can quickly ingest the information from a business card, and it creates a new contact for you. Other things that are incredibly useful is, for example, the invoice processing, which is pre-trained on millions of different invoice layouts, which will automatically be able to detect invoices with invoice lines, total amounts, and all the standard things you would expect on an invoice. Really something available for you today to try out. Other things like receipt processing, if you still have some kind of process where people need to take pictures of receipts to claim expenses, that can also be automated through an app or through Power Automate, leveraging this powerful AI model. Now, not everything can be right out of the box. That's why the Power Platform also offers you some AI models that you can train yourself. You can add your own training data to these models, and they will train specifically on your data set. For example, that invoice processing that is pre-trained is all fine and dandy, but it's only really good for invoices, not for anything else. If you do still have some kind of a paper process out there where employees or customers have to fill out a paper form and then someone scans it in and types over the information into Dynamics or another system, well, that's where form processing really shines. You can upload examples of all of the forms that customers have filled out previously, click and drag around all of the fields, and the AI will start recognizing and learning the layout of that form. And the next time a customer scans and uploads a form, everything is automatically detected and extracted, and you push the data automatically into Dynamics or whatever system you feel like. The same with object detection, for example. If you have some kind of situation where you have pictures coming in and you have to detect whether or not certain objects are in there, that is a great model for you to start with. We have quite a good business case in the Netherlands with object detection, where we have a municipality that's using the power of Power Apps to automatically detect pictures that citizens send in of issues in public spaces. For example, if they take a picture of a light post or a trash can or something like that, it's automatically detected. Oh, this picture has a light post in it, or this picture has a trash can in it, and it will automatically get routed inside of the municipality to the correct department that's in charge of that type of object in that public space. Let's take a quick look at a real life example here. I have already set up a flow inside of this environment that processes invoices. So we have our flows from just before, and also we have this one, processing incoming invoices. I've set this up so that it monitors an email box for invoices that come in. So it checks this particular inbox. It is set to include the attachments and only trigger when attachments are included, because I don't want to trigger for all the emails here. And then we'll loop through all of the attachments. With an apply to each, you essentially loop through a collection of things. There might, of course, be multiple attachments, then we want to process all of them. We are using the power of AI Builder here by using this connector, which you can find right front and center. AI Builder is always here for you. When you click on this, we have all of those models I was talking about at our disposal. This one is the invoice model. So I plug in that invoice model with that data flowing from the first step. I flow that data into this step, and this has its own output. So one of the first steps then I want to use my Dataverse connector to look up this customer inside of the Dataverse. So I use the from email address to look up the account for this particular customer, so I can connect that onto the invoice. And then I create the actual invoice inside of my Dataverse. And there's a few things that are static. So for example, the currency is always static for me, but other things are being flowed through the invoice. So we can see this one has that AI Builder logo. These are being flowed from AI Builder and into the Dataverse. Then we have another loop here because an invoice, of course, has multiple lines. So we loop through all of the lines on the invoice and we write them into the Dataverse. In this case, the Dataverse environment I'm talking about is just a Dynamics 365 environment. So we can take a look at that. Let's see what happened moments ago because I just sent myself an email with an invoice. So we can see indeed 1 minute ago, an email arrived and it parsed that successfully. So we can open that, see what happened. It ran successfully. We can see an email arrived. We can see the details of that email. We can see what happened. There's 1 of 1, so there was only 1 attachment. We can see what happened here in AI Builder. So it scanned this file. This is just the binary details of the file. We can see what the output is. So it scanned it. It says this is the address, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're looking for the customer. We found the customer, we're creating the invoice, we're looping through the lines, and we can see this is 1 of 3. So there's apparently 3 lines on that invoice. And that's something that we could also see when I open the actual invoice here on my desktop. So we can see this is the invoice I just sent over there. It's a PDF. It does indeed have 3 lines. And if we see some of the details here, so the date is the 26th, for example, we could probably see that in here. Well, let's take the total amount. Is that 277? Yep, it's 277 in some bits. So let's go over to Dynamics 365. Let me go to my invoices. And we should be able to see that invoice. There's some other invoices here as well from earlier, but we can see that invoice here. So that's it did grab the wrong amount here, the subtotal, unfortunately. But that's all part of the model that needs to be trained a little bit better, but we can indeed see this is the invoice 1802. That's plugged in here. And we can see those products here as well. So we see type B replacement, the winter cover, and an algae guard. Indeed, those products are all in there with the amounts. Yeah, the amounts check out fairly easily. And that's how we can leverage AI Builder to make our processes even smarter. Well, AI Builder is unfortunately an add-on for the Power Platform, so it is something you have to pay for separately. It's available in 2 license scenarios. Either you purchase it as an add-on, which will start at $500 per month per unit, and a unit will give you 1 million service credits. And a service credit is a certain amount of AI scans that you can do or AI detections that you can do. Or if you are already using Power Automate with attended RPA, which is a $40 per user per month license, that comes with 5,000 credits as well included as usage. So you could do either of those. What constitutes a credit exactly? Microsoft is a little bit vague about that, but there is a calculator you can use to calculate that, and that will hopefully give you some insights into how much you would need. There's so much more for me to show you, but we are running very dangerously low on time. So I think I will cap it off here and I'll hand back to Chris.
Thanks, Michelle. It's a good place to cap it off. What I would like to say to everyone is that we run this session for you, and without your feedback and input, it's never going to be valuable. I've put a customer voice survey into the chat window right now. It's going to take less than 60 seconds of your time to say good, okay, not good, with smiley faces. I would really appreciate it if you could take a moment just to send us that feedback. There's a box at the end if there's things you would like us to cover next month that we haven't covered, if there's things that we covered that you don't want us to cover ever again, if it was too technical, if it wasn't technical enough. I'd really appreciate you taking 60 seconds of your time to fill out that feedback. Without that, we can't improve it month on month. We can't make it better for you. With that, I would like to say to you all, thank you very much for taking the time out on this Friday afternoon. There doesn't appear to be any conversations in the chat window, so we'll skip straight over that. We will say thank you. We will say have a great weekend, and we hope to see you again next month.